A culture has an awful lot to lose if it doesn't pay attention to the details of its past, because if we don't have documents in our archives about specific stories, then they're just going to disappear from our collective consciousness.
What is the difference between an archive and a library? A library typically is a source of print, primarily books, whereas an archive can be much more general than that. There are lots of different kinds of archives. So there are archives that contain historical documents such as census records, for instance, but there are also film archives that keep a record of film, photographic archives. There are sound archives, there are sensation archives. Anything can be an archive because an archive is just a containment of a set of traces, not necessarily bibliographical or print-based. So we could say that a library is a kind of an archive, but an archive is a much more expansive concept than a library.
Archives are important because they give us a view to the past that we otherwise wouldn't necessarily have access to. The idea of being able to look at the receipt for something, whether it's the receipt for how much a McDonald's hamburger cost in 1950 or the receipt for a slave, tells us a lot about the history that has happened in this world.
The digitizing of archives, though, have other important qualities. For one, the accessibility, that archives, because they have been based on material traces, really required people to go to a specific location to do research in an archive. The digitization of archives really transforms people's use of them because they can use them from remote locations. Lots of different reasons that people can't get to an archive in Britain or Newfoundland or any other place, but can easily access it from the most remote location. That matters greatly. Just in terms of the practical researching in an archive too, digitization matters just by being able to use keyword searches, for instance, and to search a mass amount of information for commonalities, similarities, differences, and so forth, that previously would have required moving through immense mountains of paper and collecting notes about them. So the ease of access of knowing what is in an archive and being able to do interesting things by cross-referencing and indexing it opens up archives in all sorts of interesting ways. That, coupled with the fact that everything now starts to become digitized, are important features, I would say, of the digitization of archives.
The one thing I have very much enjoyed the fact that there's digital stuff available. I can't deny it. I think it's a fantastic thing. That said, I'm such a tactile person that I want to touch everything. And so I really hope that it doesn't only become digital, because there is knowledge to be gleaned from touching materials, from actually physically touching them. I can appreciate that materials can degrade over time. I can appreciate that paper crumbles. But there is paper that's 900 years old. It's got so much linen in it or so much other stuff in it, and it's still just as beautiful as it was when it was made. And there is just something to learn from actually touching the paper, from feeling its size. Even if someone says, oh, it's 9 by 5, well, what does that mean until it's actually in front of you? So in terms of the future of archives, I wouldn't want them to go digital. I appreciate very much what digital allows, particularly for students, but I also feel that we lose a lot if we only do digital, because I have learned so much from just being with the paper.